Welcome to the Fall 2024 new items from Marklin, Trix and LGB. Once again, the product managers have put together an interesting program. Please note that the models are all hand samples. When steam is in the air, many people get very excited. It starts with a locomotive with a sweet nickname, Bubikopf.
Ja, wir haben jetzt eine Baureihe 64 als Hauptneuheit im Programm. Die ist beheimatet in Aschaffenburg.
We now have a Class 64 locomotive as a fall novelty in our program. It is based in Aschaffenburg and was built around 1970, so it's a 064. At that time, the locomotive was designed for branch lines without turning facilities and with a low axle load. It is a small tender locomotive, a 1C1. And because of this compact design, it was given the name Bubikopf. The Bubikopf was a popular hairstyle for women at the time. They had short haircuts, and Bubikopf comes from Bob, hence the nickname, because of the squat design and because it is such a small locomotive.
Gedrungenen Bauweise und weil es halt so eine kleine Lok ist.
When reproducing the operating condition around 1970, emphasis was placed on the many details. For example, we can see DB reflex glass lamps at the front of the triple headlights, while two of the three lamps at the rear are still from the Reichsbahn era. The model is equipped with a telex coupling at the front and rear and has a built-in smoke unit as standard. In the past we have had individual freight cars with advertising lettering such as Löwe, Telefunken, Nordmende, Saba, or, as now in the fall novelties, which would be the last in this series, a VEB car advertising the Volkseigener Betrieb Sternradio Sonneberg from back then. This pretty engine can be used not only with the television cars, but also with the typical trailers from Era 4. We'll stay with the steam railroad and move on to the ore mountains. The Class 86 was used there by the GDR Reichsbahn. The finely detailed model, a completely new design, is sure to impress.
With all the
prototypical modifications required to implement the German Reichsbahn version. The 86 can be used very nicely with the steam-powered rotary snowplow. We have now decided to reissue our beautiful steam-powered snowplow from the Deutsche Reichsbahn in a beautiful green and black color, as it was used by the Deutsche Reichsbahn at that time. Part of the proceeds from the sale of the models will go to the prototype.
Unfortunately,
last year there was this devastating fire at the Railroad Museum in Schwerin. We thought about how we could best help, and I am pleased to announce that we are donating 10,000 euros for the reconstruction. And to ensure that the whole thing is thematically packaged, we decided on this steam-powered snowplow. So we have a suitable model to go with it, because the railroad enthusiasts in Schwerin also have such a steam-powered snowplow. The model is also available from Trix and also appears in 1:220 scale. The Railway Museum Nuremberg is celebrating its 125th anniversary. Reason enough to dedicate a model to one of the most popular exhibits. The legendary S26, a loaner. Unfortunately, it was not in service for long. It was in operation for a very short time, from 1906 to 1921, and then it was moved to the Railroad Museum, which was under construction, and it is there to this day. Due to the anniversary of the Railway Museum Nuremberg, we decided to make the locomotive with all the modifications that were necessary to recreate the museum condition. The locomotive comes on a serving tray, which is also a classy way of drawing attention to the anniversary. And it also set a world record in 1907, 154.5 kilometers per hour, which was also recorded. That was important because the Americans also went fast, but they had forgotten to document it. This wonderful model will also be available from Trix. Outstanding steam locomotives were developed not only in Germany, but also in other countries. This one is now at home as an operational museum locomotive in Switzerland. It simply stands out. The wheels alone. It has box-pop wheels, not spoked wheels, and the smoke deflectors. The locomotive is beautifully designed and is a real eye-catcher. There are many small details on this locomotive. Of course, DC operators can also look forward to this locomotive, and it is already available from specialist dealers. The Flying Scotsman is now coming to the Marklin and Trix assortment in a black paint scheme. The half-O model will tell an exciting story too. Yes, the Flying Scotsman is a legend, and we are proud that we are able to realize this legend in the model. And we thought about how we could also show our customers the colors in which the locomotive was on the road, not only in the current museum version, as we announced last year, but also in other colors. And one very interesting story is the black version, the so-called wartime black or post-wartime black. During the Second World War, the locomotive was painted dull black so that it was not as conspicuous as the green locomotive. However, it still has a very interesting appearance. And the special thing about the locomotive is that it was renumbered several times during and after the war. It initially had the number 502, later the number 103, and at the very end it was given the number 60103 by British Railways, under which it is best known. Freight traffic that takes place off the main lines still requires the use of diesel locomotives. The good old V90 is still in demand today. Even in 2024, it is impossible to imagine German tracks without the Class 294, the former V90. It is the shunting locomotive par excellence. And that's why, together with the MHI, we decided to also implement the Era 6 variant as it still runs around today. For example, after the engine conversion on the prototype, when it was given a new engine, and thus the higher road number and the additional railings all round. This is how you can tell from the outside that it is the current version. And there is a nice little story about the locomotive. When the operating number was changed to the 12-digit NVR number, the cab of the V90 series was too short to stick the 12-digit number on. For this reason, the long front end was chosen and the old classic operating number was scratched off. However, as this number had been on the locomotive for years, the old number was still recognizable for a few years. And we have also reproduced this condition in the model, which looks really nice. But we've also given the model a bit of a technical makeover. We also now have a buffer height according to NEM. We have, of course, installed the new Telex coupler, and it's the version with the rotating driver, who looks out of the window in the right direction depending on the direction of travel or situation. The 4 cars can be used to put together a nice handover for operating the layout. We have decided to offer 2 sets of cars with different agricultural loads, just as it may have come from the factory. The Class 66 is in a different league. Its long locomotive body immediately catches the eye. The crouched body of the locomotive is due to the fact that it was originally designed for the railroads in Great Britain, and a lower clearance gauge applies in Great Britain. Locomotives are not allowed to be as high. This is why it is built lower and therefore has less space in the engine room, making it less suitable for tall engineers. It arrived in Central Europe with an unchanged locomotive body and immediately proved to be exotic, because it is also significantly lower than the cars it pulls. The tank cars are higher than the locomotive. The locomotive is a heavy freight locomotive. It has no train heating, so it cannot be used for passenger trains, except in summer, but not in front of cars that need a central power supply. It is designed purely as a freight locomotive. The maximum speed is therefore relatively low, 120 kilometers per hour. In freight traffic, it runs at a maximum of 100 kilometers per hour in front of our trains. It is characterized by its performance and tractive power. The model, which is around 25 centimeters long, has many details to offer.
The Class 66 in
the current Rhein cargo design comes with driver's cab lighting, console lighting and built-in dynamic smoke.
Eingebaut.
Matching cars can also be found in the four novelties. For DC railroaders, the specialist dealers will certainly be happy to exchange the axles. We take another leap across the pond and come to the USA. Unusual engines are in use there by our standards, such as the GE ES44AC.
Jedes Mal, wenn ich darüber sprechen darf, hört man, komme ich ins Schwärmen. Es ist einfach eine faszinierende, große US-Diesellok.
I'm excited every time I get to talk about it. It is simply a fascinating large US diesel locomotive. Big, bigger, USA. We have had versions of the Union Pacific. We had a Kansas City Southern version. We have had a beautiful heritage locomotive from Norfolk Southern. And now it's time to pay tribute to what I would say is the second best-known railroad company in the USA after the UP. This is the BNSF, the Burlington, Norfolk and Santa Fe, the merger of BN and Santa Fe. A beautiful locomotive.
Wunderschöne Lokomotive.
Freight cars to go with this locomotive can be found in the Marklin and Trix assortment. When the first Taurus was presented in 1999, there was great enthusiasm for the innovative design.
Bei mir hat der Taurus in dem Sinne Faszination ausgelöst, weil einfach von der Form her futuristisch
I was fascinated by the Taurus simply because its shape looked futuristic and still does. And compared to the rather boxy locomotives that were on the rails at the time, it had an attractive, futuristic, modern look and attracted attention. You see it on the tracks every day, and that's why it also belongs in our range. We decided to once again make a 1016 series, which was available in smaller numbers than the 1116, but which also comes to Germany every day in cross-border traffic.
Die aber tagtäglich auch im grenzüberschreitenden Verkehr nach Deutschland kommen.
3 Eurofima cars have been added to the range to match the model. They are in the popular 1 to 93.5 length scale and can therefore also be used very well on small and medium-sized layouts. The legitimate successor to the Taurus is the Vectron. Its triumphant success continues throughout Europe, and so Marklin is now releasing 2 more colorful representatives of this engine. One of the 2 is on the road throughout Europe.
For the
model railroader who operates the more modern eras, for example Era 6, we have a multi-system Vectron from LGB Cargo in our range, with an advertising sign for freight traffic. It operates not only in the Czech Republic, but also in other European countries, such as Austria and Germany. SBB Cargo rents 35 engines for national transport. They will be built at Siemens in Allach in 2024. The new Marklin model will perfectly reflect its prototype's smart design.
Das wurde dieses Jahr erst vorgestellt. Das greifen wir natürlich für unser Modell dann auch gleich auf.
This was only introduced this year, and we are using it for our model with the current road number. This model also has numerous light functions, such as the Swiss light change. You can switch to 2 or 1 red tail light, Swiss switching light. We have a warning signal in it, the warning signal for Switzerland. We have installed a wide variety of light and sound functions.
Funktionen und auch Geräuschfunktionen haben wir eingebaut.
The model is also offered by Trix and will also be included in the Minitrix program. Special highlights appear for friends of the Z or Z nominal size.
Ja, also einmal für die MHI.
So once for the MHI, the Rheingold 1962, which is hauled by an E10.12, the later Panskries. There are also 2 Rheingold car sets, each with 3 cars. The third car in one set is the bi-level dining car, and the third car in the other set of 3 is the dome car. Together, this results in a really impressive train in Z or Z gauge, which looks simply beautiful, and with which you can recreate the journey in the Rheingold through the Rhine Valley very well.
Denke ich, sehr schön genießen kann.
This version of the 038 with a tub-style tender is being realized in Z or Z for the first time. But why is the model now painted in the Bronze Collectors series?
Ist ähnlich wie bei der grünen Museums 38er, die wir vor einigen Jahren hatten.
It's similar to the Green Museum 38 that we had a few years ago, and which is now in the museum in Nördlingen. We painted this locomotive simply because of its design. The locomotives in the Bronze series also look very nice with a protective coating, but it's something special when the locomotive is painted like the original. You can see all the small contours, the entire finely crafted body. The design is the icing on the cake. It is definitely a locomotive to fall in love with.
Es ist eine Lok zum Verlieben, auf jeden Fall.
New models in nominal size N will also delight the fan community. All traction types and almost all eras will be represented.
Da haben wir praktisch unseren Digitaldruck mal so richtig ausgereizt.
We have really made the most of our digital printing. Some of you will remember what the last Orient red locomotives looked like back then. More like, in quotation marks, piggy pink and brownish due to weathering. And together with MHI, we took this as an opportunity to realize this locomotive for Minitrix, because it was very successful in Half-O. And so we also expect a lot from it in Minitrix. And a weathered locomotive without weathered cars makes little sense. Therefore, there is also a 3-part sliding wall car set, beautifully weathered. And 1 car has the rear signals on it.
Wir haben das Jubiläum 100 Jahre.
We are celebrating the anniversary of 100 years of the transportation exhibition in Sedin, which was the famous transport exhibition at the time, and 175 years of Munich Central Station. We took this as an opportunity to reissue the famous Sedin steam locomotive, this blue S36, but in a revised version, with the latest technology, for example, for the first time with sound and LED headlights.
Dazu wird es geben.
In addition, there will be 3 Bavarian express train cars in a fictitious version, although already as Bavarian Group Administration, but in this beautiful blue, so that it simply makes a nice noble train composition. 50 years of the Class 250. What the Class 111 is for the German Federal Railways with its beautiful anniversary, the Class 250 is for the German Reichsbahn. This is the freight locomotive of the German Reichsbahn, nicknamed Container. We have reworked the locomotive. It should be mentioned that the body is made of metal-filled plastic. Furthermore, we now have individual insulators on the roof, and the roof conductor line is made of wire and no longer plastic. Then, very importantly, it always looked a bit bare at the front. Some things were missing, such as the pilot, which is now there. And we have the step up, as we know it from the Class 143. And this makes the locomotive look much better. The delivery of a queen in freight transportation is imminent. We are talking about the Class 151 in 1:32 scale.
Sie erlebte eigentlich den ganzen Werdegang von Bundesbahn über Bahn AG.
Its entire career spans from the German Federal Railway to DB AG and to private railroad companies that still have this locomotive in operation today. However, customers can bring this legendary freight locomotive, quite the hard worker, from the Marklin Gauge 1 assortment to their layouts. It comes in 7 versions according to its history. From the time it was put into service at the end of 1972 in classic green, then in ocean blue beige, and from 1994 in the new product colors of Deutsche Bahn AG, Oriental Red with a white bib,
Mit weißem Lätzchen bis hin zur verkehrsroten Ausführung.
and finally in bright red. Then they were handed over to private railway companies. There we have a Hector rail engine as well as the so-called Zebra from Locomotion, which will certainly add a splash of color to any layout. Customers can really bring this engine, this electric locomotive powerhouse, to life and really experience it. And that's what we're looking at here.
Das schauen wir uns jetzt an.
The completely new designs shine with many details and technical refinements. In digital operation, the roof-mounted pantographs have a motorized raising and lowering function. A look inside the driver's cab is definitely worthwhile.
Da sehe ich dann, das ist
Even the electric timetable is illuminated. The startup light is a must-have. The engine compartment is prototypically implemented in all versions and can of course be illuminated. It goes without saying that all locomotives have a buffer memory, which guarantees fantastic operation. Now it's the garden railroader's turn. We're coming to Upper Swabia, to the Öxle. 99716 has been at home there since 1993. Although it has been parked since 2011, it is set to get rolling again. This locomotive has its origins in Saxony. However, compared to similar engines that were previously in the LGB range, it has many changed details. The biggest difference is that the trains of the Saxon narrow gauge railroads have vacuum brakes, while the trains of the German Federal Railway had air brakes. This is why this engine has an air tank of the air brakes, which is characteristically located on the buffer beam. The German Federal Railway reflective glass lamps also stand out. The coating vacuum brakes were replaced by a classic Knorr air brake compressor. And the locomotive has 2 whistles, a standard whistle with a darker whistle tone and the state railway whistle, which sounds much brighter. There's always something going on the Rhaetian Railway. Another attractive locomotive is now on its way.
Und zwar die Baureihe.
The class can now be revealed. It is a GE442, road number 626. It is also called a Pullman locomotive. That is perhaps a clue, but I'm sorry, that's all I'm allowed to say more about it. Cars for the Alpine Classic Pullman Express appear in a new edition. A container transport car with a vividly printed refrigerated container appears for freight traffic in the Grisons Mountains. Locomotives with a photographic code have their charm. 99731 was presented in such a dress at the Historic Mobil in August 2024. The LGB model reproduces the engine perfectly. It is powered by 2 high-performance motors. Please note that the model is being delivered in a one-time special series. These were the 2024 Autumn Novelties, an attractive program. You can find more information here.